Eala earns it the hard way. From love 3 down first set. Lefty shape, stubborn defense, and smart claycraft to outplay the 31st seed, Wang Xinyu, under the statues. 6-4, 6-3 in an hour and 26 minutes. She avenges her semi-final Auckland loss where she fumbled match point in January to Wang and rolls into the Rome third round.
Nobody saw this coming. Not the analysts, not the bookmakers, not the seasoned tennis journalists sitting courtside with their laptops and their confident predictions. And honestly, that's exactly what makes what happened in Rome today one of the most jaw-dropping moments of the entire 2026 tennis season. A 20-year-old girl from the Philippines walked into one of the most historic stadiums in sport, onto one of the slowest, most punishing clay courts in the world, and she didn't just beat the 31st seed. She took her apart. Piece by piece, point by point, until there was simply nothing left to take. The name is Alexandra Eala. Remember it, because after today, the whole world is going to be saying it. The Foro Italico in Rome is not just a tennis venue. It's a place that carries weight. When you walk through those gates, you can feel it. The marble statues towering over the red dirt. The ancient Roman aesthetic pressing down on every competitor who steps onto that court. There's a reason players talk about Rome differently than they talk about other tournaments. The clay is heavy, the conditions are slow, the wind swirls unpredictably off the surrounding hills, and the crowd, that loud, passionate Italian crowd, is never, ever silent. This is not a place where the timid survive. This is a place where only the mentally strongest players thrive. Today, we found out exactly where Alexandra Eala stands on that spectrum. To understand the full magnitude of this victory, though, you need to go back a few months. Earlier this year in Auckland, these two players met in the semifinals of the ASB Classic. Wang Xinyu, tall, physical, armed with one of the biggest flat forehands on the women's tour, completely overwhelmed the young Filipina. She used her size, her power, and her aggressive baseline game to grind out a 3-set victory, 7-5, 6-4. It was a brutal lesson. The kind of loss that sits with you. You replay it in your head at night. You think about what you could have done differently. You question whether you're actually ready for this level yet. Most young players carry that kind of loss like an anchor. It slows them down. It tightens them up the next time they face the same opponent. But Alexandra Eala? She carried it like fuel. Wang arrived in Rome sitting comfortably in the top 35 in the world. She'd received a bye in the first round, so she was fully rested, fully prepared, and according to virtually every preview written before this match, fully expected to handle business against the unseeded Filipina once again. The narrative was neat and tidy. Wang's power game would overwhelm the slower clay. She'd dictate from the baseline the way she always does on faster surfaces, and Eala would get another valuable learning experience before bowing out early in the draw. That was the script. Nobody told Alex about it. From the very first rally of this match, something felt different. You could see it in the way Eala moved. There was a stillness to her, a quietness in her eyes that didn't belong to someone who was nervous. She looked like she'd been waiting for this. Her footwork was immediately crisp and purposeful, sliding into position on the clay with the kind of ease that only comes from spending years grinding on this specific surface. And that's the thing people forget about Eala. She didn't grow up playing on hard courts in air-conditioned facilities. At 13 years old, she left her family in the Philippines and moved to Spain. To Mallorca, specifically. To the Rafa Nadal Academy. And if you know anything about what that academy demands from its athletes, you already know what's coming next. The Nadal Academy doesn't produce players who are merely fit. It produces players who are forged. Players who understand that pain on a practice court is an investment. Players who learn to embrace the burning in their lungs during long clay court rallies because they absolutely know, that their opponent is feeling it too. The clay in Rome is Eala's element. It's where her left-handed topspin forehand becomes genuinely terrifying, where her relentless defensive coverage turns into an offensive weapon, and where her superior physical conditioning starts showing up in the third hour of a long, brutal baseline battle. Now let's talk about the actual tennis, because the numbers from this match are staggering. The scoreline was 6-4, 6-3. Clean, clinical, and thoroughly deserved. But the scoreline alone doesn't tell the real story. The story lives in the details. Throughout this match, Aya created 11 breakpoint opportunities. 11 times she put Wang under that suffocating, high-pressure moment where a single mistake ends the game. And out of those 11 chances, she converted 7. 7 breaks of serve against the 31st ranked player in the world. In a 2-set match. Think about what that actually means. That's not just winning points. That's repeatedly stepping into the most pressurized moments in tennis and executing, not once, not twice, but 7 consecutive times across 2 sets. Wang's serve, usually one of her most reliable weapons, was being read like a newspaper. Aya was stepping inside the baseline, taking the ball absurdly early, and hitting heavy, low returns right into Wang's feet before the rally even had a chance to develop. Wang simply could not get comfortable. She pushed her first serve percentage up to 73%, which is actually a solid number on clay. But here's the part that tells you everything: she only won 36% of those first serve points. Her best weapon, landing exactly where she wanted it, and she was still losing. The point more than 6 times out of 10. Because Aya's defense is not passive. It's aggressive. Every ball she gets back doesn't just come back, it comes back deeper, heavier, with more topspin, and usually aimed at exactly the corner Wang least wants to deal with. Wang was forced into hitting 6, 7, 8 shots per rally just to stay alive, and eventually the errors started creeping in. Now flip it around and look at Aya's own serve, because this is where the story gets even more remarkable. 0 double faults. Across 2 full sets, under the pressure of the Roman wind and the weight of facing a seeded player who'd beaten her just months earlier, she didn't double fault once. Her first serve percentage sat at 76%, which kept Wang guessing and off balance throughout the match. And when she did miss her first serve, she didn't panic. She leaned on a heavy, kicking left-handed second serve that bit into the clay and jumped awkwardly into Wang's weaker side. The result? Aya won 62% of her second serve points. To put that in perspective, most professional players struggle to win 50% of second serve points against top-tier opposition. Winning 62% means that even in her most vulnerable moments, she was still controlling the rally. It means Wang could never truly attack, never truly smell blood, never build the kind of momentum that changes a match. The first set was a chaotic, brilliant, exhausting back and forth that tested both players. Wang actually converted 4 of her 5 breakpoint opportunities in the entire match. In almost any other context, breaking your opponent's serve 4 times is enough to win. But Aya broke right back every single time. She didn't flinch. She didn't tighten up. She played the kind of fearless, aggressive tennis that made the whole crowd lean forward in their seats. Her topspin forehand was dragging Wang so far off the court laterally that she kept opening up enormous gaps down the line, and she was burying those winners with startling consistency. The first set went to Aya, 6-4. And then something shifted in Wang's body language. It was subtle at first. A slight drop in the shoulders after a missed shot. A slightly slower walk back to the baseline. The kind of microsignals that experienced players recognize immediately. The damage had been done psychologically. Wang had played some of her best tennis, executed her game plan reasonably well, and she was still losing. She was still being outworked, outthought, and outrun by someone the world thought she should be handling comfortably. The second set wasn't a contest. It was a statement. Aya went on a run of 4 consecutive games that felt almost clinical in its efficiency. She wasn't going for flashy winners. She was playing chess while Wang was still trying to play checkers. She varied her pace, mixed in deceptively disguised drop shots that Wang stopped chasing entirely, and kept that relentless, rhythmic topspin baseline game going at a tempo Wang simply couldn't sustain. The final point of the match was a perfect summary of everything we'd witnessed for the previous hour and a half. Aya served out wide, pulling Wang wide off the court. Wang scrambled, scraped a weak defensive slice back to the middle. And Aya, unhurried, completely composed, took 3 small adjustment steps, loaded up, and hit an inside-out forehand winner that left Wang standing flat-footed. The scoreboard said 6-4, 6-3. The stadium erupted. And Aya raised her fist, looked to her coaching box, and that was it. No theatrics. No screaming. Just quiet, controlled satisfaction. The satisfaction of someone who knew exactly what they came here to do and did it. But I want to zoom out for a moment and talk about why this matters beyond the tennis. Alexandra Aya is carrying something onto every court she steps onto that most players never have to think about. She's not just playing for ranking points. She's not just playing for prize money or sponsorship deals. She is playing for over 100 million people in the Philippines who have historically measured their athletic greatness in basketball and boxing, not tennis. Every single time she steps onto a grand stage, streets in Manila slow down. Phones get passed around. Families gather around screens. Because she represents something genuinely rare, a proof of concept. A living, breathing demonstration that a talent from Southeast Asia can not only compete with the best players in the world, but can physically, tactically, and mentally dominate them. The path that brought her to this moment was not easy. Leaving home at 13 to move to a foreign country, learn a foreign language, adapt to a foreign culture, all while grinding through the punishing lower rungs of the professional tour. She bled on practice courts in Mallorca to earn the right to perform on this court in Rome. Every painful training session, every early morning run in the Spanish heat, every technical repetition done until it became muscle memory, all of it showed up today in the form of 7 breaks of serve and 0 double faults. There's a reason the Rafa Nadal Academy produces champions. Not because of fancy equipment or secret training methods, but because it instills a philosophy of endurance, of suffering productively, of learning to play your best tennis precisely when your body is screaming at you to stop. In the second set today, as the match pushed past the 90-minute mark, Wang's movement became visibly labored. She stopped chasing drop shots. She started reaching for balls instead of moving her feet. Meanwhile, Aya was still bouncing between points. Still alert, still sharp, still hungry. The fitness gap was undeniable, and it wasn't even close. The broader implications of this win are significant. Professional tennis has long been dominated by European and American players who grew up in well-funded club environments with coaches who worked with them from the time they could hold a racket. Players from Southeast Asia have historically faced enormous structural disadvantages, limited infrastructure, long travel, less financial support. For Aya to not just overcome those disadvantages but to turn up at a Premier-level event and dismantle a top 35 player in straight sets, that's not just a personal achievement. That's a signal. A very loud, very clear signal to every young girl in Cebu and Davao and Manila who ever picked up a racket and wondered whether someone like her could make it at the highest level. She can watch Aya slide into a corner on the red clay of Rome and see exactly what's possible. And what's possible is extraordinary. Wang Xinyu will bounce back from this. She's a genuinely excellent player with a very bright future ahead of her. But today she was caught in the path of something she simply wasn't prepared for. A 20-year-old who showed up with a perfect game plan, the physical tools to execute it, and the mental strength to never let go. 7 breaks of serve. 0 double faults. 62% of second serve points won. Those are the numbers. But what they represent is something bigger. They represent years of sacrifice finally paying off under the Roman sun. They represent a sport slowly but surely opening its doors to a part of the world that has always had talent, always had hunger, but never quite had its moment. That moment is here now. Alexandra Aya is here now. And based on everything we saw today in Rome, the rest of the WTA draw should be genuinely, deeply worried. Because she didn't come all the way from the Philippines, train for years in Spain, and carry the weight of an entire nation on her shoulders just to make up the numbers. She came to win. And today, she made that absolutely, unmistakably clear.